So this weekend, we've been honoring and celebrating our practitioner corps, and we've been together. We spent the weekend together in a retreat. The practitioners are called to lifelong learning and growing, and that's what we were doing this weekend. And our facilitator, who is also our guest speaker this morning, is Reverend Dr. Michelle Wadleigh. Excuse me. And let me tell you a little bit about the doctor. Reverend Dr. Michelle is an inspiring and exciting coach, master teacher, speaker, workshop and retreat facilitator, and prayer practitioner. She is the co-founder of Planned Happiness Institute and the PHI Coaching Academy. Michelle founded the Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey 22 years ago. She's been a coach for over 20 years as a graduate of IPEC Coaching Institute. Michelle is an incredibly unique and practical teacher who is passionate about you mastering a fully expressed life. She is grounded in solid metaphysical principles and brings to her teaching a wide open heart along with a sense of humor joyfully demonstrated through her laughter and her engaging style. Her focus as a teacher is empowering others for their own spiritual and emotional liberation through the application of practical tools and methods, including the science of mind. She's a straight shooter who calls things as she sees them while using her easygoing personal style. Michelle brings a wealth of experience from having helped thousands of people to experience great transformation in their lives. Michelle has spent years developing her courses in forgiveness and shadow work. These courses are now complemented with her books, Forgiveness, A Path, A Promise, A Way of Life, and her book, Shadow Work, A Spiritual Path to Healing and Integration. Michelle is also the author of other books, Prosperous Me, 40 Days to Freedom, A Lenten Practice for the Modern Mind, and So It Is, a book written specifically for individuals who take issue with the word God. And May Silence Be Your Guide, a guide to a self-paced, silent retreat. She's also created many inspiring recordings. Reverend Dr. Michelle has always loved the Center of Peace, and as many other people who come to be with us on Sunday, she too had a special relationship with Reverend Sheila Pierce. And so as an extension then of Reverend Sheila's love for Reverend Michelle and Reverend Michelle's love for Reverend Sheila, we get to experience it now. So everything that I've read about Reverend Michelle to you, it's true. She's a badass. She's cool, and most all, she's principle-centered, and she comes from her heart. Please help me welcome Reverend Michelle.
Am I on? You can hear me? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Good morning. Good morning. What an incredible pleasure to be here. It was a magical, mystical weekend with these beloved, precious beings. We metaphorically got naked together, metaphorically, but it was glorious. My pronouns are she and hers. And although I'm not very attached to that, because what I know and part of the message that I'm attached to continuing to learn and know myself is that I am not this what you see, but that which animates me, right? We are that which animates us. We are not the physical being, the color, the names, the degrees, the stories, the wounds, the place where you came from. That's not who we are. You and I are the essence that sees each other in that Namaste practice that I know we used to practice at the Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, on a regular basis. And I like to open my address always with an affirmation that I'm going to ask you to repeat after me with a boatload of enthusiasm. Okay? Today is the most glorious day of my life.
Today is the most glorious day of my life.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to tell you, I will never again hear Ave Maria the same. Matter of fact, I don't even want to hear it that way. I want that version. Oh, my Lord, have mercy. It went to my bones. It was so incredibly moving. Oh, my God. Yeah, wow. So the title of today's talk is The Joy of Authenticity. And a while ago, I had to turn the direction of some of my addresses and some of the work that I do, specifically because, you know, when I walk into a room, I represent doing the hard work. Nobody enthusiastically signs up to do forgiveness work. People don't enthusiastically sign up to do shadow work, you know, because it's so heavy and it's the, you know, it's the underbelly. But I also believe in it because what I know is, I know, and these precious beings know way too much about me after this weekend, but you know that when I'm aware that we all get to come from this precious, lovely rainbows and, you know, everything is good kind of planet. You know, some of us have come here by right of some suffering, from some stories. We've come from lack. We've come from just, you know, issues. None of us, I believe, probably none of us got into this room with just total ease and grace. You know, it just didn't happen that way. And so I have always been the person from the very beginning of my ministry when I was in that pulpit, which I've now retired from. I was always the one to speak the reality into the room because I felt like I wanted people under my care to remain conscious of those who weren't, and I wanted us to stay conscious about the people who don't have the ability to do so. Because I feel that sitting right next to you sometimes can be someone with such painful stories. And I wanted to be the individual who stayed conscious about that. I didn't want to go to sleep, and I didn't want to just have this positive ministry where I was so just focused on that I didn't include all of the other stuff. So, you know, my journey in my ministry has been a little heavy because I'm the one who talks about abuse. I'm the one who talks about sex trafficking, the things that we don't really want to talk about, you know? And of course, within that is all the isms that I take issue with and have learned to speak about and up-level the awareness for anyone who's been in my care. But I did have to change the focus a while ago because I wanted to be a little more welcome in the room. I didn't want you doing this thing, oh, here she comes again. So I did change my focus, and that's why the title, The Joy of Authenticity, because what that really is, it's the reward of doing the work, and we spoke a lot about that. There are major rewards for doing the down and dirty. There's a lot of rewards. There's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of joy, and those, they're not always obvious, and they are, you know, you can't quite touch them, but they find us right where we are. And I want to share recently, because it was Mara, beautiful Mara, who asked me yesterday, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And she kept me honest. She was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I love that. I'm a Jersey girl. I can handle straightforward, much better than false pretense, right? And so I really appreciated, Mara, I really did. I really appreciated the conversation. And so, but the rewards are beautiful, and they are many. And I just want to share, I've been traveling for almost a month in September. And so spent about 3 weeks on the West Coast, starting in Canada and then landing in Washington. I had never been in that part of the world. If you've never been in that part of the world, very different from Philadelphia. Stunning, beautiful. The air is different, and you can drink from the faucet. I keep saying that because I thought that was one of the best parts. Around here in my home, filtered water. But a friend of mine that I stayed with, and I had 5 different hosts along the way. So it was interesting learning that from the work that I do, that I'm able to kind of gently navigate into a culture of different people without much upset or confusion or unmet expectations. But we went to this place called Wadleigh Falls Park, just this beautiful state park with falls, not gigantic falls, not even as big as the Patterson Falls, but falls all the same. But the air up there, it's almost like a rainforest there, and all the trees were damp, and there was moss on all the trees, and I had to touch them. I found myself, I had to touch them. And what this did was there was these moments of joy that I would tear up. Nothing was happening. It was not prompted by anything, except what's happened is with the work that I've done, with the healing that I've done, thank God for Science of Mind and prayer. Prayer. Oh, thank you, God, for prayer. That I'm able to purge from me the things that distract me from my God, which always, what's that Ricky Byer song? There's a Ricky Byer song about that. But, I want nothing between me and my God. And it's the pain and the suffering and the stories that we tell ourselves that get in the way. So once we get the stuff out of the way, the reward is God. The reward is joy. The reward is bliss. The reward is falling in love with people that you never met before in your life, or you re-fall in love with people in a deeper way that you have met. Isn't that juicy? Like, if you got nothing else, wouldn't that be good? Yes. And if you're not, you have to ask yourself, why not? You got to ask yourself, what is in the way of me having blissful moments of looking in someone's eyes and saying, oh man, look at that precious being. You got to ask yourself that. So there are things that have to go. If you... Although, do you use the word, oh my God, chemicalization? Do you use that term around here? No. I see a couple heads. Chemicalization, a very old metaphysical term. I see a couple heads. Chemicalization is what happens when you say, I am the presence of God, and I choose to live that way. And then all of life starts to fall apart. But the reason what's happening is that which is unlike your declaration must be shed. So to the inexperienced eye, it can look like, oh, it's not working. Or it can look like you're doing it wrong. Or it could look like, oh man, God's not real. But that's not what's happening. When you and I sit in a declaration of possibility, of our pure potentiality, then that which is not it has to be shed. It must be shed. But some of those things we can activate initially. We can activate without it happening naturally. And you want to try, because when it happens, when God's in charge of it, ooh, watch out. Self-judgments. You and I and anyone within ear, within the listening now or every Sunday with Reverend Twana, you and I must never again speak a word against ourselves. How would you like to try that? To never again speak or think a word against yourself. Lord have mercy, you don't deserve to speak anything against yourself or your others. Because remember, especially children, you know what they say, that when you speak against yourself, they hear it, and then that becomes their inner voice. That's what happens. That's why we must become meticulous co-creators by paying attention. The habit of all blame and fault finding. Gotta go. Gotta go. There's no room for that. When we want to be in relationship with God, there's no room for blame and fault finding. It's gotta go. All life-limiting talk. All life-limiting talk. All of it's gotta go. We need to remember that there was this moment of conception when suddenly Spirit breathed life into you at that moment. And it was like, oh man, another place for me to express. Oh man, another player on this plan of possibility. Oh man, I get to be Sandy. I get to now come in and be who each of you are. That's what Spirit wants. It wants more places to play and more invitations to play full out. It was excited when you incarnated because you gave it a bigger playing field. You get that? You gave it a bigger playing field. And then you want to learn to read the signs when you're not plugged in, right? We got to learn what those signs are. Sustained anger. I say sustained because you're going to get angry. I'm going to get angry. There are things to be angry about. Some things to be angry at on the planet right now. Sustaining the anger, though, is so detrimental to our essence, to our spirit. Not only emotionally and spiritually, but physically. So I'm never going to say to you, it's not good to be angry, because it's an emotion. It's an emotion that we feel, and that's okay. Because I would never tell you that you don't want to do anything that's not purely human. And that's part of your humanity. Jealousy. Anybody got can you admit to a little bit? No, only a couple people? Really? I don't know how my first husband survived me. I was hands down the single most jealous person I knew. It was painful to be in my skin. It was painful to be me. It was ugly. It was ugly. And it changed, and I didn't tell the story last time, but it changed when one time I went to this women's weekend. And it was women for women, just women teaching, women doing stories, women musicians, women belly dancers. And all of a sudden, I fell in love with who we are. I fell in love with women and our essence. That's when the beginning, it didn't end there, but that's when the beginning of my letting go of that habit of jealousy left. And I was very grateful. Righteousness. Just when you think you really have a cause to be angry and righteous about, I'm telling you, you want to pay attention to that, because righteousness blinds you from the ultimate truth. It doesn't mean you're wrong about what you're having feelings about, but righteousness is all-consuming and blinding. Competition. Anybody have a sentence? Now, competition can be healthy, but competition in the form of comparison, that kind. Because when you compare, you lose. We can't ever win if we're comparing ourselves. Incessant mind chatter. Notice the group that's laughing. I did everything I could this weekend. Finally, we got there. Come on, admit it. I did everything I could this weekend to get them to go. It took a couple tries, but they did. Yeah, right, that's right. But they did, because the incessant chatter, not the mindful, but the incessant chatter is so busy creating this like chaotic vibration that we're not hearing the voice. We're not hearing the guidance. We're not hearing the pull. We're not. And you don't always have to be quiet to hear it. I had a moment in my life 28 years ago, I think it was right before my son was born, I was divorcing my husband, and there was a night, and I was having one of those ugly cries, snot, tears, like ugly cries. And I'm laying on the couch, and nobody was coming to say, "Mom, you okay?" And I'm laying there, and I'm in that ugly cry, and I swear to you, I heard a voice that said, I was worth saving. So it came through even in the midst of all of those emotions. But you have to want to hear it. You have to want to hear it. You have to be willing to listen. Because if you are, it will call you out of yourself. It will remind you. It always does. So we want to read those signs, but we don't want to find fault with ourselves. That's the tricky part. We don't want to judge ourselves for judging. We don't want to judge ourselves when we do compare. We don't want to judge ourselves when our mind chatter gets off. We just want to go, oh, there you are again. Oh, there you are again. Because the moment we do that, we're in charge. But we want to read the signs of love. I was in California in July, and I was helping the chair of the Leadership Council, Reverend Dr. Alice Reed, with her doctorate ceremony. And I stayed at her home, and she had a bumper sticker on her car that said, "Respond with love." I thought, oh man, that should be our rally cry. Because if there's anyone perfectly positioned to respond with love, it's us. This teaching, these kinds of communities, we are perfectly positioned to be that person. We don't always do that though, do we? And even that's okay too. But the thing about it is, I think our job is to keep turning our trajectory. A long time ago, I came up with this vision statement for myself, and it was, I am the place where love resides. But then that didn't feel right to me, and then it turned into where my I am is the place where love resides. You get that? That reads differently, doesn't it? Where my I am is, because my I am and your I am is the one I am. Where my I am is the place where love resides. And so living in that causes me to want to make sure that when I leave the sanctuary today, I've done no harm. I choose to walk the planet doing no harm, even to myself, especially to myself. So we want to remember, who did you come here to be? You didn't come here to play small. You came here to sing a song like that. You came here to be bold and to be brilliant. And if you're distracted from that, get that which is distracting you out of the way. Not just the practitioners, all of y'all. All of y'all. And it doesn't mean suddenly you have to be a practitioner or suddenly you have to try to be the minister. What it means is to be the best version of yourself when you're in your own company, when we are with our family, so that our words of love with our family, our children, and I have 3 grandchildren at home, and I'm massively crazy in love. Any other grandparents in the room? Like, it's crazy how much you can love, isn't it? I was telling Al this morning that when my first granddaughter was born, I thought, oh, she was the greatest thing that, oh. And then they told me they were pregnant again. That was mad as hell. Because I thought I wouldn't be able to have more love. What was I thinking? And now I got 3 of them, and I'm waiting for my son to get married to give me more. So love does just keep multiplying itself, but you and I have to be ready for it. We have to be the ready vessel, which is why I do say forgiveness is critical in our lives. We talked a lot about that this weekend. We all practiced a new practice this weekend, and it was called Naked Truth. Sparked from the movie It Stops With Us, or It Ends With Us, if any of you have seen that or read the book. And in that naked truth that we shared, I don't want to cry, but there was this preciousness, right? You saw each other in some of the most beautiful ways, and I hope none of you regret revealing, because you became more beautiful and more empathetic to each other and more compassionate, and it was a stunning room filled with powerful people just getting metaphorically naked. And it was beautiful. And the reason why I think that's so important is because when we're hiding, we're normally hiding something we think is not lovable. You know what I mean? You got parts that you'd really rather not show. Well, what if you could love those parts? What if every aspect of you, every aspect, was still lovable? And so we are needed. We are needed. I'm not the head of the organization. I'm not the head of anything anymore. I can walk around saying, not my circus, not my monkeys. And yet, because I'm distant from that kind of responsibility, what I know is that you and I are needed more than we've ever been needed. You and I are needed to approach anybody on the street, the people caring for us, anywhere we go. You and I are needed more than ever before in our lives, because the planet and this country needs us. And so I'm going to ask you to do one little thing, because I really do believe we have to learn to lean into and on each other. And if you're sitting next to someone right now, lean in for a moment. Just lean in. Even if you don't really know them, just lean in just a little bit. Because that leaning in sparks this other thing that says, oh, I'm not separate from you. I am you. You and I are together. You and I are one. Because what are we? We're not the separate beings that we are. We are the essence that animates us. And so when we lean into and on each other, nothing can stand against that. Nothing can break you up when you know who you are. We are a beautiful community. And I say we because I feel like wherever I go, I'm one with, and this has just felt, it was really nice coming back to the East Coast. I love who we are on the East Coast. I really do. Not necessarily the Eagles. My husband's a Giants fan. What do you want me to tell you? But my new daughter-in-law is an Eagles fan, so. Can't hear it say, but with this enthusiasm.
You were doing so well.
I don't really care one way or the other, to be perfectly honest. It's my husband, I live with the man. It's an ugly day when the Giants lose. And they've been losing a lot. Lots of ugly days. So I'd like to pray us out of this moment. And so I'd like to ask, yes, this moment especially. I did blow that. I'd like to invite the practitioners to stand in their power. And if you're sitting and you're willing to hold someone's hand, I encourage you to hold a hand for, do you not do that here? If you're comfortable. Oh, so please join me in knowing that there is a power and a presence and a love that is glorious. It is the very essence of our being. It shows up in, through, and as each one of us here, each one of us listening now, and each one of us that will hear this recording at another time. It is stunning. And if you are willing to live in that relationship, I invite you to whisper a yes into the room. Yes. And let that yes be a covenant of possibility. Let that yes find you right where you are now, later, in your sleep. Let that yes be that sweet connection that has you consistently being synced up to the one in the most beautiful ways, the most beautiful, beautiful ways. I bless this center. I bless Reverend Twana, the practitioner corps, the members, the building. Let the light of the center of peace shine so brightly that you need a second celebration every Sunday. Because there's something good and precious happening here, and the world needs to know it and feel it. I'm grateful for the presence of Spirit as us, and I surrender this word to love, to law, and to the awe of life itself. And so it is.
And so it is.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And so, as we journey on throughout our week, I want to remind you that there are a lot of rewards for doing the dirty. The reward is good. And so it is.